All right. Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, October the 22nd. And in this week's live English lesson, we are learning how to use the word somewhat. And before we begin the lesson, I know it will take a minute or two for more people to get here. So the first thing we're going to do is just chat a little bit. I'm going to take a moment to look at some of your comments and say hello to everybody. Then in about 2 minutes, we will begin the lesson. And actually, before I look at the comments, I just want to remind everyone that I do have my new ebook, which teaches you how to learn to think in English. Um, I've already talked about this a bit, so I'm not going to talk about it too much right now. I just want to remind all of you that it is available if you are interested, because I did a survey and about 1,000 people said that they would purchase it if I put it on a website for $5. And so far, only about 200 people have purchased it. So I just want to keep reminding everybody so that if you are one of those people who wanted to purchase it, I just want to make sure that you don't forget about it because I think that it will help you. So I'm going to post the link in the comments. So if you want to come back at the end of the video, check that link and purchase the ebook, you are more than welcome to. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. But okay, yeah, again, today's topic is how to use somewhat. But first, I'm going to read some of your comments. So Rhea was the first person to comment. Once again, I'm glad to join today's live. Thanks a lot. Thank you for joining, Rhea. Rhea also gave me some faces. Okay, thank you. Guerma, hello, Teacher Mike. Very happy to join this live, although I am somewhat tired. Thanks a lot for your efforts. Okay, so it looks like Guerma already knows how to use somewhat, but hopefully I will be able to give her some new information today as well. Evelyn, happy to join your live. It's an interesting topic as always. Thank you, Evelyn. I'm glad that you think this topic is interesting, and I hope that you will learn something new. Jane from Thailand says, hi, Teacher Mike. I'm glad to... Ooh, Jane, you need a verb. I'm glad to attend your live. Yeah, I'm glad to attend your live, or I'm glad to join your live. And I'm glad that you are here. Okay. You did. Now you did say, I'm so glad to join your today's live. Okay, good. Thank you, Jane. Radwa, also here as usual from YouTube. Hi, Teacher Mike. Glad to join today's live video. Hello, Radwa. I'm glad that you are here. And Magita, hello, Magita. Thank you for joining. And Ava, hi Mike, nice to see you. This topic seems interesting. I hope you find it interesting. Thank you. All right, but I'm not going to read all of the comments because I want to start our lesson. So, again, the topic is how to use somewhat. And before we even talk about the meaning, the first thing I want to say is that somewhat is an adverb, and adverbs modify adjectives. So you can say somewhat spicy, somewhat interesting, somewhat boring. They also modify verbs, and they also can modify other adverbs. But today we are just focusing on how we use somewhat as how we use somewhat to modify adjectives. So today we are not using it to modify verbs or adverbs. Again, it can do that, but I want to keep this video simple today because it's only going to be about 20 or 30 minutes long. So today we are using the word somewhat to modify adjectives. Again, somewhat spicy, somewhat big, somewhat interesting. Now, what does it mean? Somewhat basically means moderately. You might know that word, you might not know that word, but moderately basically means in the middle, not super high, not low, just in the middle, moderately. You could also think about somewhat as yes, but not a lot. So in one of my examples, I'm somewhat hungry. That means, yes, I am hungry, but I'm not very hungry. If I can't have any food right now, I will be okay. Because I am hungry, but I'm not very hungry. I can wait an hour or two, maybe. So that's what somewhat means. It basically means yes, but not a lot. So why do we say somewhat? Why don't we say moderately? Well, moderately is more formal, and formal language doesn't usually feel very natural in everyday conversation. So somewhat just feels a lot more natural, a lot more like language that you use in real everyday conversations. Whereas moderately sounds more formal and more academic. Like maybe you're looking at a graph or numbers. Um, Moderately is also more precise. What this means is that moderately sounds like you measured it. Okay, it's this number, this amount. We looked at it, we know exactly how much or how many or how something. Whereas somewhat does not feel so precise. Somewhat is just like, yeah, I don't know exactly where it is. It is, but it's not a lot. Whereas moderately sounds more like it's exactly in the middle. We know this because we measured it. So that's it. Moderately is more formal, more academic, and more precise. Whereas somewhat is more conversational, not so precise, not so specific, just somewhere in the middle. And again, example, I'm somewhat hungry. Like I said, somewhat is an adverb, and today we are using it with adjectives. So you're going to have somewhat and then an adjective. Somewhat hungry. Hungry is an adjective. My next example, she seemed somewhat upset. Again, upset is an adjective. So when we put somewhat before it, it means she was not very upset, but she was upset. I don't know exactly how upset she was, but it wasn't a very, very low amount, and it wasn't a very, very high amount. It was somewhere kind of in the middle. And my final example, English grammar can be somewhat difficult. Again, not super difficult compared to some languages, but a little difficult compared to other languages. It can be somewhat difficult. So that is really everything that I wanted to explain. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to check the comments to make sure that everything was clear, see if anyone had any questions, And then after that, I'm going to let you send me some sentences. I will put them on the screen, show them to everyone, and check them. Okay, most of the comments I'm seeing are just saying hi, hello. It doesn't look like there's many questions. I just want to make sure that everyone understood my explanation. Okay, okay. First thing, so Giselle says, today I was somewhat hungry, so I didn't eat a lot. So usually, somewhat is going to be a little bit more positive. I, I don't know if positive is the correct word, but if you say today I was somewhat hungry, I would expect you to say, so I ate a lot, not so I didn't eat a lot. Um, because again, it means yes more than it means no. Um, so here I would probably say, I wasn't very hungry, so I didn't eat a lot. But with somewhat, I would say I was somewhat hungry, so I don't know what I'd say. Today I was somewhat hungry, so I ate more than usual, or I ate about the same amount that I usually do. But again, I didn't eat a lot makes it sound like you were not hungry. And somewhat makes it sound like you were hungry. So it doesn't really work. The explanation was somewhat vague, but luckily I could figure it out. Good. Yeah. So I like how you used somewhat here. You used it correctly. And yeah, sometimes it's difficult to give a perfect explanation because when an English speaker gives a definition to another English speaker, we usually use bigger words to make everything really detailed, really clear, really specific. But when a teacher is speaking to English learners, we need to use simpler words to make sure that you can understand it. Because if you don't know this word, why would you understand a more complex word? So yeah, sometimes my explanations will be a little bit vague. Good example. I'm somewhat tired. Good. I'm somewhat tired, so I'm going to bed. It's not I go to bed, but I'm going to bed. What's the difference between somewhat and somehow? Somehow is not about a level of something. You can't say it's somehow spicy or it's somehow big. That's not what somehow is for. Somehow is completely different. It's not related to this at all. I can talk about somehow in a different video. So here, this person, Rueda, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. This person used it to modify a verb, to modify speak. I can speak English somewhat. That means I can speak English, but it's not perfect. So this person used it as a verb. Again, we're not really talking about verbs today, but I decided to show all of this to you as an example because it is a good example. Thank you. Is somewhat the same as a little bit. Somewhat, yes and no. Somewhat is a little bit more than a little bit. So if somewhat is approximately in the middle, a little bit is more down here. Social media is somewhat useful. Good. I think social media is very useful, but your sentence is correct. Very good. I'm somewhat satisfied to your work today. So, somewhat satisfied is correct, but we don't say satisfied to. It should be satisfied with. I'm somewhat satisfied with your work today. That's correct. However, it's not a really nice thing to say to someone. It's like saying, "Today you did an okay job. It wasn't very good. You didn't do a very good job today, but it's okay. I feel somewhat satisfied with it. It wasn't the worst work that you have ever done, but it wasn't really good. It was just in the middle." Learning English is somewhat easy. I agree somewhat with the new project. So here, this one, Julie is using it to modify the verb agree. I agree somewhat with the new project. Um, Good. However, I don't think we would ever agree with a project. You can you usually agree with an idea, agree with an opinion, agree with an what's the word I was looking for? Um, I forget. Proposal. You can agree with a proposal, but I wouldn't usually say agree with a project. I was somewhat confused about this lesson, so I got some more time to practice. Good. Somewhat confused. Very good. Let me turn this thing off. Okay. Today I work up and feel somewhat sad. Okay, so good, but I think you want to say woke up, like wake up. WOKE, not work. This is work. Like right now, I am working. You need WOKE, woke up. Ava, good question. Can I use somewhat to describe positive adjectives? Yes, you can. So I am somewhat happy. Yes, yes, you can do that. You can use it for positive adjectives and you can use it for negative adjectives. Good question. The only thing that we don't really do is if you have what's called an ungradable adjective. So, for example, an adjective that's already really strong, for example, freezing, freezing, very, very, very cold, you wouldn't say somewhat freezing because freezing means very cold and somewhat means in the middle. So it doesn't make sense. Um, Likewise, you wouldn't say it's somewhat huge or it's somewhat gigantic, which mean very big. You don't use it like that. It needs to be an adjective that's kind of neutral, not too high, not too low. She was somewhat surprised to see me with her son. Very good, Irina. Correct. Good, good, good. Is somewhat similar to so. Not really, no. So is like so just means okay. Not very good, not very bad. And you don't use it with an adjective. So you would never say so good or so spicy or so big. It's just so. How are you doing today? So. That just means okay. So no, it's not really similar. Good question. The price is somewhat higher than I expected. Very good. It's late in Iraq, but somewhat sleepy. But doesn't make sense here. Maybe so. It's late in Iraq, so I'm somewhat sleepy. So would make sense, but does not make sense here. I am somewhat curious. Very good. The shirt was somewhat big, but I had nothing else to wear. Yeah, good. Very good. The weather today is somewhat cooler than yesterday. Very good. You need a period at the end of your sentence, though. I worked somewhat hard yesterday. Okay, so Jane, in this one, hard describes how you worked. So hard is an adverb. That's describing the verb work. How did you work? I worked hard. How hard? Somewhat hard. So in this one, somewhat is modifying the adverb hard, which is modifying the verb worked. So this one is an example of how we can use somewhat to modify another adverb. The movie is somewhat good to see. It's grammatically correct. I don't know if I would say this, but it is grammatically correct. Good. My work has progressed somewhat. Good. So you haven't made 100% progress, but you have made some progress. Very good. And yeah, here somewhat is modifying the verb progress. Good. Her house is somewhat far away from my house. Period. New sentence. That is why I called her several times a day. So this is really good, but it should be two sentences with a period in the middle. I felt a little bit surprised, but Arena, this one does not have somewhat, but it is correct. The weather today is somewhat cooler than yesterday. Good. He is So this one is almost correct. We wouldn't say somewhat but it would be somewhat. He is a somewhat religious person. Means he's not very religious, but he is religious in the middle. I am somewhat poor. Good. I'm not the poorest person in the world, but I am poor. Good. When I do two things at the same time, I get somewhat distracted. I'm going to say that one more time slowly because I'm not going to type it right now. This is very good, but it should be when I do two things at the same time. We don't say in the same time, it's at the same time. I get somewhat distracted. The adjective is distracted, ed, and you need the verb get. When I do two things at the same time, I get somewhat distracted. I am somewhat happy to teach my class this morning. This is correct. It feels a little bit weird because it sounds like you're happy to teach the class, but you're not very happy to teach it. It's not wrong. Something just feels a little bit weird about this one, but it's not wrong. Her boyfriend was dressed somewhat strangely yesterday. Good. Yeah. I'm somewhat disgusted by your behavior. This is just an example. Good, good. I'm glad that you're not actually disgusted by my behavior. Thank you for clarifying that, Ava. But yeah, that's how we use somewhat. One reminder, where did it go? I guess let's do a very quick summary of everything. So again, somewhat is an adverb. This means that you can use it to modify an adjective, you can use it to modify a verb, and you can use it to modify an adverb. It basically means moderately, or yes, but not a lot, more in the middle. And it's a little bit more than slightly or a little bit, it's just a little bit higher. But it's not specific, it's not precise, it's not exact. It's more like somewhere in the middle, but we don't know exactly where. So yeah, that's how we use somewhat. And a final reminder to everyone, my new ebook, How to Think in English, is now available for anyone who is interested and has not yet purchased it. If you're interested in purchasing it, it's just $5, and I will post the link in the comments one more time in case anyone is interested. There you go. So the link is in the comments if you are interested. That's all for today. Oh, one more announcement. I'm not sure if I will have a new video this Thursday. I'm currently working on a video that's a little bit longer than most of my normal videos, and this means it's taking me longer to write it, record it, and edit it. So I'm not sure if it will be done by Thursday. So there might not be a new video this Thursday, just so you know. Anyway, thank you all very much for participating in this live. I enjoyed reading your examples, and I'm happy that most people seem to have understood the lesson. Please don't forget, I do live videos at this time every Tuesday. It's not every Tuesday, but it's 90% of Tuesdays. If there's a week where I don't have a live, I'll try to tell you 24 to 48 hours in advance. But most weeks I have a live video. And when I have a live video, it's always at this time on Tuesdays. If it's morning for you right now, Wednesdays. But if it's evening for you right now, Tuesdays. But yeah, that's all. Thank you all very much for joining, and I look forward to doing another live lesson with you next Tuesday. Please enjoy the rest of your week.